Well, Kristen, this has been super powerful. I feel like I need a big, deep breath as I process all the things that we've been learning so far.
Yeah, it's been so good. And I think where my mind's at is just like, how do I grasp onto what we're hearing in a week from now and not forget what we're hearing today? How, Anne?
I don't know. I keep thinking about the movie Inside Out, where there's this little girl and she's got all these emotions in her mind, and we get to see what she's thinking inside of her brain. And there's this character, Joy, that's the main character, and sadness and how they coexist. And I cried through that whole entire movie, and I just keep thinking, if you haven't watched it, you got to go watch it, okay? It's just like so good. 'Cause I think our culture is interested in this topic of joy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like I think all through, like find it so interesting that we're talking about this topic today because it's been a conversation and a dialogue since like all of history. And, it's interesting because when COVID happened, a news article came out in March or April, and it said there's this online course called The Science of Well-Being, and it's really the search of happiness that Yale University put out. And over 1 million people signed up for this course. And to this day, over 5 million people signed up for the course. It's because it's a universal desire that we all long for this deep, deep inner sense of joy and happiness and contentment.
And what we're suggesting is that we can't actually find it within ourselves, that Jesus is the source of joy. So there's this problem because we want to have it, and so we try to find it, and it seems like in the trajectory of our life, like as a little one, we're taught to be kind, be good to others, and then you go to school, and then when you're in school, it's like, okay, we'll find out what you want to be in your career, and then you do that, and you find a job, and you don't like that job, you go to the next job, and then you try to figure out how to climb some invisible ladder that's out there, because maybe that will be fulfilling, satisfying this emptiness or this joy bucket that we have inside of us. And then maybe we need relationships. Okay, so we try this relationship and that relationship. Well, maybe then in order to find joy, I have to get married and then have kids and then have grandkids. Right. And then it's just like this cycle, and then die, and then what? Like what? And then the whole process we have to, in our generation, show the play-by-play on Instagram so that maybe that will give us joy. And we end up feeling restless the whole entire time. And it can't be, this life cannot be that. It cannot be that. To have like this fullness of joy, there has to be another source. It can't be found within ourselves.
This totally makes me think of the movie called The Stalker, which is a 1970s film, and the cover looks so creepy.
The title is creepy.
But the premise of the movie is there's these 3 guys who are on this mission, on this journey to find the room. And in the room, when you walk into the room, all your desires, your deepest longings, your goals, your dreams, everything in the core of who you are comes true. And so they're on this mission to find this room, and I'm going to spoil it for you because I don't think you're going to watch it.
I'm
it's
never gonna
really
watch it,
a little creepy. So they get to the room, but they're hit with this reality before they walk in that they don't actually know what the deepest desires of their hearts are. They don't know how to articulate it. But then the second part of it is they don't actually know if they'll be beneficial for them, or if it'll be healthy for them, if it'll bring them joy or happiness. And I think this is all of us as humanity. Like we go through life, like you're saying, like through cycles where we think that it's going to bring us joy. But do we actually know that it's going to bring us deep contentment and happiness? It's such an interesting thing, and it makes me think of this American philosopher named Dallas Willard. And he tries to simplify our lives into these 3 components of like, if we just picture our lives as our mind, our body, and our spirit. He says life away from God, you prioritize the body. The body is king above all. So, things like food, what we eat on a daily basis, or what we drink, or working hard to get a roof over our heads, or a car, or whatnot, like that is king, like how we physically look in front of others. And then it comes the mind, and then it comes the spirit. And what you're saying, like we go through cycles where we hope that it'll fill the deepest core of who we are. But then many times we find that it doesn't. And then he says on the other end, it's life under God. And life under God, we place God as priority for sure. And then under the God, we flip it, and it's the Spirit, where the Spirit is so intertwined with God because God knows the deepest desires of our hearts. And we hear it again and again in the Bible where it says, like Psalm 37, Psalm 20, of he will give you the deepest desires of your heart. And the thing is, like, they're so intertwined because he knows what we need, and we don't even know what we need sometimes. And then it goes your mind and then your body. And then it's not that we don't care about our body, but God so deeply cares about our physical needs as well.
It's so good, because what you're describing then is that the way that we're actually divinely wired is that the eternal gives internal joy. And then when we experience that internal joy that comes from God, then it overflows from us to the external. Rather than thinking that something from, the external, the things that are temporal in this life are going to fill that void of joy. It's really interesting to actually welcome the divine, the, eternal, to say that could be my source of joy. That could be what actually fulfills me internally. Look, I get to enter into so many stories of people on the daily. And I hear things like the mama that now has two little ones, a toddler and an infant, and she's like losing her mind because she's like, what in the world did I send? This doesn't give me joy. I thought it was going to give me joy, but it don't give me joy. That picture, perfect family picture on Instagram. We don't know what's behind the scene. Or my single friends that are like, look, I hate this season that I'm in. I hate it. I just, maybe what will give me joy is being in a relationship. Or the people I love spending time with are those that are a bit more seasoned in life, like the grandmas of the world or the older women of the world that just go like, look, I don't, there's a story right now that just blows my mind that there's a lady whose husband is in the nursing home. She can't even go to visit him because he has dementia and he's there, but because of the COVID restrictions, she can't go visit him. And she's like, look, like, I'm grieving in this moment, yet I am so happy and so full of joy of the life that I have lived. I feel satisfied in that. And yet so many people that have gone through deep tragedies have still been able to experience joy. Like, I'm telling about other people's stories, but we can talk about our own stories. And I'm a woman who's super familiar with tragedy. Whether that's been in abuse or losing my own dad really young and having, family members that have been in and out of prison. Like there's tragedy upon tragedy. But when I encountered God's word, like you were talking about Psalms and different scriptures, I was like, oh man, when I encountered the word and that word had power. Both of us are students. We love literature. We love, to read and study. But there's something different about God's word. When those words pop off the page, they change my heart. They change my mind. They change my life, my perspective. And I think that once we start to welcome that power into our life, we'll be able to access joy in a different way within the suffering, within the challenge, within the hardships that we face. Because we're not suggesting that because we have the joy of God, then we're not going to suffer. Right. That's not what we're saying. We're saying it's both and. It's like the movie. It's like the joy and the sadness. It coexists, but you're saying, God, I just welcome you into this moment in my life. I welcome you into this hardship. I want to do this life with you.
That's so good,
The part of the word that really got me, because I didn't grow up in this, faith, was when I encountered this one verse in Isaiah 61, and it actually, the secret almost to joy was revealed to me in that moment. I was like, what? I can't even believe what it says. It was so powerful. And it says, God says, give me your shame, and I'll give you a double portion of honor. Give me your grief, your mourning, your lament. I'll give you a double portion of joy. It's an exchange. Give me what your heartache is. That's what we're saying. God, come and enter into this moment with me. I'll give you my anxiety. I'll give you my pain. I'll give you my angst. And the exchange is joy. He's not saying just forget about it. He's like, let me exchange it so that you don't have to carry this heaviness. One of the things Dr. Mary was talking about was the connectedness piece to joy is relationships. And it seems like it's so far from even our present moment because we have these words like isolation, social distancing, quarantine, which means relationships are stretched and separated. And so there's this loneliness that comes in that feels like it robs joy. But I don't think that's been a COVID thing.
Right,
I think this is
right.
like a lifetime thing.
Right. I think like the reality is like it's a sad reality that even in this women's conference right now, like on the other side of the screen, we'll probably have people watching that are alone, like by themselves, like physically alone, or maybe with one other person. And the reality physically is that it is sad, like this moment that we're in. But yeah, like you're saying, like I wonder how we can stretch it. Like how often, like even if we think about the last women's conference that we were at, or the last time we were at church, or the last time we were at a large gathering, it'd be a concert or whatnot. And I think to some degree we've all felt it where we're in the midst of people, like a sea of people or crowd, but you still feel these feelings of loneliness or feelings of no one really understands what I'm going through, or no one really knows me in the midst of everything going on. And so I wonder how we can take this and span it across like this COVID moment of how we can be so intentional with relationship now so that when we're post-COVID and we're rubbing shoulders with people, we don't still feel that loneliness that we're talking about.
I don't know if we do relationship really well. As females, there seems to be this construct that is within even entertainment. People poke fun at it. Right. I mean, we were talking about kids' movies, but I was thinking about... my age will come out now, but Anne of Green Gables, where, she finds like a bosom friend and the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants,
Yes,
and they find like
time.
great value. And then I think of like High School Musical. It's like, which character are you? Are you the good friend? Are you like the mean girl? Mean Girls, that's like another one. Or even now, like I haven't watched this, but my friends that do, The Bachelorette, that supposedly they talk bad about their friends behind their back, but then in their face they're like, oh, you're my BFF, like whatever. We don't do relationships really well. We don't do relationships, and there's this brokenness that enters into friendships, and we put our expectations on our friends, almost creating that they are the idol. But Jesus is saying, hey, let me be your friend, because I'm going to show you the great example of that a friend actually lays down their life for another. So when Jesus actually says he's your true friend, he's saying I'm the source of friendship. And he actually in the Bible tells his friends right before he's going to go get crucified, take heart, because in this world you'll have troubles, but I have overcome the world. Like, let me do friendship with you. Let me do friendship. Let me do this life with you. Meaning he's got your back. He's not going to abandon you. He's like the true, friend that we're all looking for, the BFF. He's the true friend that we can rely on. And he can teach us how to do friendship well, because if that's one of the joy building strategies that will actually be part of being a more whole person, then we want to be able to do friendship well and not necessarily put the expectation on the other, but think about ourselves.
I really like that. Like, I like how you're saying don't just put the onus on other people. Like, how can you be this friend in this moment? And I was reading the St. Augustine, his Confessions, and he was talking, he's a theologian and philosopher who's really shaped the Christian faith. And he was talking about his conversion into Christianity, and he was saying he was surrounded by a series of episodes of people, of true friends who came alongside of him, and who weren't people that just enabled him in positive agreement of where he was at, but were the people who really came and helped him come face to face with where he was at and point him to the vision and the hope to which he was called to. And I think about like practical things. We think about Dr. Mary and what she's saying about one negative thought needs to be outweighed by 5 positive thoughts. Like, what would it look like to be a friend who you're sitting with someone, like we're sitting together, you're complaining, you're negative, like there's negative things going on, but like a practical thing of tell me the positive things going on in your life instead of just wallowing with them and enabling them, but pointing them to the vision, to the hope to which they're called. And I think about just what you're saying, this quote by Tim Keller. It's so good that I just have to read it. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved is, well, a lot like being loved by God. It's what we need more than anything. It liberates us from pretense, humbles us out of self-righteousness, and fortifies us for any difficulty life can throw at us.
I think that's just mind-blowing, because what we're actually saying there is, in order to access a full supply, lifetime supply of joy, it requires surrender. They go hand in hand. So if I can fully surrender my life to God, which is not like I'm going to lift, like the white flag, that I think that I heard one speaker say that that's more like a truce, saying I just give in. That's not what we're talking about. Like a full cognitively understanding, fully surrendering my life doesn't mean I'm going to magically have perfection, but I'm going to release what's not mine to carry. And I'm going to say, God, I can't supply my own joy, because if I try to do that, it's a full-on burden. It is going to weigh me down. I can't carry this. So in God's economy, actually surrendering ourselves means my life is going to be more meaningful. I'm going to surrender my worries, my challenges, the wars in my mind, my unforgiveness. And because of that, because of my valiant surrender, I can experience valiant joy.